This season of This Headache Journey is sponsored by gammaCore non-invasive vagus nerve stimulator, the drug-free solution for migraine and cluster headache. gammaCore is the first and only FDA-cleared non-invasive device to treat and prevent multiple types of headache pain via the vagus nerve. It's small, handheld, and portable for quick and easy treatments whenever and wherever needed. gammaCore is safe, effective, and easy to use. Learn more at gammacore.com. That's GAMMA core.com. Hi, I'm Adam Flaherty. Welcome to This Headache Journey, a podcast where I revisit various modalities I've tried in hopes of reducing the frequency and intensity of my own chronic headaches, so that you're more educated as you navigate your own journey with chronic headaches or migraine. A quick reminder that I am not a doctor, and nothing you hear in this podcast constitutes medical advice in any way. Today's episode centers on the relationship between what we consume into our bodies and chronic headaches, and I'm specifically going to share about my experience with a 21-day purification program that eliminates inflammatory foods which can contribute to chronic pain. But before I get into it, I'm going to do that very podcasty thing of asking you to help me get this show into more people's ears, because I truly believe my experiences can benefit others in a meaningful way. If you have 30 seconds, could you help me out by leaving a review wherever you're listening right now and subscribing to the show if you haven't? The second, and this one is huge, would be to text this episode to a friend, colleague, or family member who also suffers from chronic headaches or migraines like we do. Just imagine if the information I share in this episode reduces their chronic pain. That would be a life changer. I'm 43 years old, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Sure, I ate fruits and vegetables, but a lot of what I ate for meals and snacks came out of packages, bags, and cans, and the snacks in particular were what we now consider ultra-processed. There wasn't a lot of oversight into what I was eating or how much I was eating, and while my weight was never really a huge area of concern, it wasn't until I was an adult, probably in college, that I recognized that I had a responsibility to myself to take care of my body and exercise and consider my diet. Even when I started considering nutrition more closely, I wasn't terribly strict with my diet. I certainly wasn't paying attention to calories or thinking about the balance of proteins and carbs and starches on my dinner plate. But all the while, I've dealt with these chronic tension-type headaches for as far back as I can remember. At one point in my late 20s or early 30s, I saw a nutritionist, more to develop some good habits than anything headache-related. I dropped off fairly quickly, probably just due to the cost and inconvenience of an in-person appointment every week. Then, a couple of years ago, my chiropractor, Brett Racine, who you may have heard in the inaugural episode of this podcast, invited me to participate along with a group of his patients at Bonfire Chiropractic in a 21-day purification program, an offering from a company called Standard Process. Dr. Brett wondered if this detoxification might yield some good results for my headaches. I became curious myself, and I agreed to participate. Fast forward a couple of years, and I've since done the program 2 more times. In a moment, I'll describe my experience to you because it's a lot. And the first time I did it, I also recorded some audio check-ins, and I'll play back a few sound bites from those as well to really give you an immersive idea of what it's like doing this purification program. A quick side note, Standard Process is not a sponsor of this podcast, and despite me reaching out a number of times inviting a spokesperson from their team to record a chat with me, I got no response. And that's okay. It proved to be a positive thing because my guest for this episode is the amazing Nicole Flaherty. There is no relation, just a fun coincidence. And Nicole worked for Standard Process when I first committed to trying the 21-day purification. And she even came to Bonfire Chiropractic to educate our group about the program and what to expect. And even though she's not a spokesperson now, she knows this program really well, and she shares some extremely valuable information about nutrition and its connection to chronic headaches. Another quick aside, I actually pay Nicole on a bi-weekly basis now to look at my food log. I track everything that I'm eating, and she comes back to me with really amazing feedback on what I'm eating and when I'm eating, and suggestions for how to improve my eating. It helps me stay accountable, and I just have a lot of respect for her and what she does and the value that she provides. Okay, so the basics of the program are for 10 days, you eliminate almost everything from your diet. Think caffeine, alcohol, carbs, sugar, grains, dairy, you name it. You can eat as much organic fruits and vegetables as you like, and they recommend organic so you're not consuming any chemicals or pesticides or preservatives that might coat the fruits or vegetables. And you can also eat things like beans and pseudo grains like quinoa. On top of that, you're consuming several protein shakes a day using their special blend protein powder and taking supplements every day, multiple times a day, which they also provide. It's a lot of pills. Now, keep in mind, I'm not an expert on this stuff, so this is my words, not official language of standard process. So to learn more about the specifics of the program, I will put links in the episode notes so you can learn all about it in way more depth than I'm able to explain. So after those first 10 days, you actually introduce animal protein. So think chicken breast or ground bison or bison steaks or certain types of fish. And then you essentially ride it out through the duration of the 21 full days. I'm not going to lie, it's hard work, and it requires a strong commitment to staying on the plan. And if you're someone who gets food cravings, you know how powerful they can be. I've done this now 3 times, and each time I've experienced fairly substantial weight loss. I'm talking 10 to 15 pounds in 21 days, and I've been able to maintain healthy habits for the most part. There were stretches of days where my headaches were certainly lower, but I can't say that after like X number of days into the purification, my headaches stopped altogether. I also wasn't great about introducing foods back in one at a time after the cleanse was over, like they recommend, to see which ones could trigger a headache. But regardless, I've always felt good after completing this program, and I always describe it as my body feeling quieter. All right, here's a few of my more notable check-ins just to give you a sense of what it's really like when you're fully in it. This is the morning of day 2 of the standard process 21-day purification program. Yesterday wasn't too bad. The food prep wasn't awful. I didn't mind eating only fruits and vegetables and some quinoa. The shakes were, towards the end of the day, got a little stale, I guess, but I can do it. The toughest part was around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I started getting a really bad headache and a little bit of lightheadedness. Figured out that it was caffeine withdrawal, and it really got worse and worse. I ended up going to bed at around 8 o'clock, slept for 10 or 11 hours, which is unheard of for me. Feel maybe a little bit better this morning, but still have a pretty intense headache. So the caffeine withdrawal aside, the experience has been fine so far. I lost 3 pounds in the course of 2 days, which is also pretty remarkable. All right, I'm on day 6, and I gotta say, my headaches have continued to wane and fade away, and I actually feel really good right now. My energy is decent. My headache is very low, and I feel like if and when I do get a headache again, having removed this food, inflammation, caffeine, alcohol thing from the equation is going to help me to better determine what the root cause is of that particular headache. And so I'm really psyched about that. I'm feeling good. I'll report back in another couple days. Right, it's day 9, and the caffeine withdrawal I feel is gone. And now I've had a couple days in a row where it's been kind of up and down with headaches. So after the caffeine withdrawal, headaches had, I believe, dissipated by day 6 or 7. Now it's I'll have a day where the headache is really low and then a day where it's higher, all day. And today's one of those days. Day 9 is a higher headache. Yesterday, day 8, it was low pretty much all day. Great day. And today, I'm still productive. It's not debilitating. All right, I'm at day 11, and I get to incorporate some lean proteins starting now. So I've been to the grocery store. I picked up some bison meat, which I'm excited about. I also picked up some haddock and some salmon, and the world feels like it's opening up to me a little bit. I know I'm still limited in a lot of ways, but just being able to bring in some of those new flavors and textures and that animal protein that I'm craving is really exciting to me. I'm also halfway done, and I know that if I've made it this far, I can make it another 10 and a half days to the 21. I'll be back again in another day or two. It's day 14, and I'm feeling okay. For the last maybe 3 or 4 days, I have had a headache, varying degrees of a headache. Today, it's pretty decent. Decent meaning decently high. I feel like I'm used to this diet at this point. I'm really looking forward to having certain foods. It has been nice the last few days having some protein. I've had some bison and some chicken, and that's been really nice. I was hoping that my headaches would have stayed lower after I finished, my body finished detoxing from the caffeine. So back in touch again soon. It's day 17 of the cleanse. I am feeling quite good. My headache has been low. I think this is the 4th day in a row, which is really exciting. I've been running more. I found that when I do my typical 2-ish mile loop that I just have a little more energy, more stamina. I have dropped almost 14 pounds, just shy of 14, and that's really exciting. So now I'm setting my goal on 20 pounds, and I'm looking for a nutrition coach who can help me because I've been logging all of my food using an app called 8, where you just take photos of it, and it's not going through directories or counting calories. It's literally just taking a photo. And so for me, it's great for accountability, but I'm looking to share that with somebody who can once or twice a day just check in on it, give me comments, give me support, give me tough love, help me stay accountable to myself. And so I'm looking for that now, just to continue on with some of these positive habits that I've been forming over the last few weeks. So I'll be back to check in at least one more time. All right, this is day 1 after completing the standard process 21-day detox cleanse. And I got to say, I'm feeling good. My energy has been good. I've been a little sleepy lately, but that's not abnormal for me. My headaches have come back periodically. They seem to be maybe associated with stress or weather when they do. But on the whole, my headaches have been significantly lower more often as a result of following this diet. Highly recommend doing this to anybody who needs to kickstart some weight loss, feels like they're in a rut, wants to feel better. I can't say enough good things about it. There you have it. Onward and upward. I haven't listened to those since I originally recorded them a couple years ago, so some of that stuff is even surprising to me to hear again now. Okay, with that, I'm going to share my recent conversation with Nutritional Therapy Practitioner and no relation to me that I am aware of, Nicole Flaherty.
My name's Nicole Flaherty. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and also certified in nutrition response testing. I own Natural Nutrition and Wellness, and we're located in North Andover, Massachusetts.
The credentials after your name are NTP, which is Nutritional Therapy Practitioner, correct?
Correct. Nutritional therapy practitioner is a holistic practitioner that's looking at nutrition and kind of everything that goes into it. So focusing on nervous system, stress, sleep, balancing, diet, exercise, water intake, and kind of everything else that goes in behind the scenes to getting food back to a whole balanced plate.
Great. So Can you talk to me sort of generally about the relationship between what we eat and chronic pain?
So, a lot of times, what we're eating is leading to chronic pain in the body. How I explain it is in our body, what ends up happening is we get this silent inflammation that's building and building over time. Most of the silent inflammation can be coming from our inflammatory foods. So, this is going to be a lot of our packaged foods where we look at the back of the label and we don't know half the things that are in there. So, my golden rule is like if you can read it, you can eat it. But as we eat these foods, what ends up happening is this inflammation is just slowly building over time, and it's causing backups in different areas. So it can cause our liver and kidneys to back up. It can cause our body to hold on to things in our fat cells. But this inflammation is going to end up causing a response in the body, and it can be different for everybody. Some people can notice it as arthritis. Some people can notice it as shoulder pain. Some people can notice it as headaches and migraines. But this inflammation, as it brews and brews, is going to cause stress in the body because it can't filter things through like it's supposed to. And if we keep causing chronic inflammation, if we keep putting in those processed foods, our body keeps having this chronic inflammatory response. So if we're eating our whole foods, like our broccoli, our sweet potatoes, our meats, well, our body recognizes those foods and can actually break them down to use the nutrients rather than lead to this inflammatory cascade.
So you are typically recommending for people, whether they have chronic pain or not, to adjust their diet to reduce or remove things that have a lot of additives. So you basically are saying fruits, vegetables, anything that's prepackaged really should have as few ingredients as possible. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So a lot of times it's educating people on what they're actually putting into their bodies, because if you look at back of a label, most of the time you don't know half the ingredients that are in there. So trying to be aware of what's actually in our foods and trying to just be eating the foods that don't need a label. So that's going to be like our broccoli, our sweet potatoes, our ground beef, where it's like, okay, we know what's in here. There's nothing extra in there. And that's kind of the closest it comes from in nature.
Like in your experience, how common is it for headaches to have a nutritional component that, inspires them or intensifies them?
I would say most of the time when we have clients coming in that we're working with headaches, we're working on pulling that inflammation down. And so this is working through getting rid of the inflammatory foods. Sometimes there's going to be a trigger food that bothers people. For example, gluten is a huge one that people will notice if they're having more gluten. They're going to notice a rise in inflammation. They're going to notice a rise in headaches, brain fog, energy dips. And a lot of times, too, there's also can be a lack of nutrients. So sometimes we're not getting enough magnesium, we're not getting enough calcium, we're missing some things in our diets because we're not eating enough vegetables, we're not getting enough healthy fats, whatever it may be for that specific person's kind of there's not enough, and that can kind of be the cause of the headaches as well.
It sounds like you're saying sometimes it's connected to a particular trigger that irritates a food sensitivity, but sometimes there's multiple factors that can be contributing to that inflammation.
Yeah, I would say each person's a little different. I would say there could be, sometimes there's multiple things. Sometimes it's as simple as magnesium helps solve the problem. Most of the time, I would say there's one or two components. It's usually not just a fix with like a deficiency. There's usually also something in their diet that's inflammatory that's also bothering them. And that's going to be a big component in that nutrition side of things.
Talk to me about blood sugar, because in the work that we do together, when you are reviewing everything that I'm consuming, a lot of your notes center around making sure that my blood sugar is stable throughout the day. So eating enough, eating the right types of things in combination with each other. How can blood sugar affect headaches?
Yeah. So my example with blood sugar is I always say we want people on the nice Hawaiian wave. So we want things nice and steady throughout the day. When we're getting these big dips, spikes and plummets in our blood sugar, we're also going to be getting spikes and plummets in a lot of our hormones. And so what can end up happening is when we're getting these blood sugar drops, we typically think of it as like a hangry, where it's like, okay, I'm hangry, I want to eat anything in sight. But we also can get symptoms that are a result of that blood sugar drop. And so I get worried about low blood sugar as much as I get worried about high blood sugar, because these low blood sugar moments is when we can get dizzy, lightheaded. We can get a lot of cravings. We can notice headaches. We can notice changes in mood because our body is in that low state where it doesn't have enough fuel to kind of pull things up. When we're pairing foods, we're making sure that that blood sugar is then able to stay nice and steady for a couple hours. Because if you eat a Snickers bar or you eat a piece of fruit even, it's going to give you a quick spike in your blood sugar, but it's also going to give you a quick spike back down. So we want to make sure that there's a protein or a fat paired with that carbohydrate so that you're getting that long burning fuel to keep that blood sugar nice and steady for 2 to 4 hours. So that balance is trying to make sure that it's not just going through these big spikes up and plummets down all day long, and we're getting a nice steadiness throughout the day. And a lot of times people's headaches are just based back to that because they're in this low blood sugar all day long and they don't have enough to keep their body going, and they just keep getting this spike up and spike down in their hormones.
You mentioned gluten being a common trigger for people. What other types of foods can be big triggers for people?
Yeah, another big one is going to be dairy. Dairy in its natural form is actually really good for the body. It has a lot of calcium and a lot of nutrients. But as we've processed dairy, we've turned it more into an inflammatory food because we've taken out a lot of, sometimes we're taking out the fat, we're adding sugar in, we're processing it by adding different mechanisms and changing its original form. So that's going to be a big one for a lot of people. Another big one that people notice will be grains. So even to, I know when you did the standard process cleanse, that's a big thing that comes out of the diet because what ends up happening is grains in nature too can also cause some inflammation. Sugar is probably number one, even over gluten and dairy. And we've also added sugar into everything. So that's a big one that's kind of sneaking in more and more. Another one's caffeine. So even coffee, like organic versus not organic, can make a huge difference because coffee, when it's non-organic, is going to have a lot of toxins in there and a lot of added chemicals. So a lot of times when people are taking coffee out, they start to feel better. Another big one is also going to be anything with like inflammatory oils. So like the canola oils, the vegetable oils, those can also cause a lot of inflammation and a lot of negative response for people.
So when it comes down to meal prep, do you recommend people use olive oil, avocado oil? Are there other types of oils that you like to recommend?
I usually say olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, and then just butter and ghee are also great.
How about alcohol? I mean, needless to say, there's lots of negative things that alcohol will do to your body, and everybody understands, what a hangover is and how terrible that feels and how a headache is usually a big component of that. But like, how about alcohol use, even in moderation? Like, how can that, what's the relationship between that and headaches that you've seen?
So the biggest thing with alcohol is going to be it dehydrates the body. So it's sucking a lot of minerals out of the body. And again, with these headaches, you can be really sensitive to mineral deficiencies. The other thing is it needs to get processed through the liver and the kidneys. And so if the liver and kidneys, if we think of them as like the trash can in the body, if they're already backed up from a lot of other things going on, say it's like the shampoo we're using and the oils we're using and the processed foods, and now us adding the alcohol on top of that, we're adding another stressor on top of the liver and kidneys to filter through. And most of the time when we're doing this, the liver and kidneys are already overtaxed, so it's causing this inflammatory response throughout the body. So between those two things, I would say is like the biggest issue when it comes to headaches and migraines, because it's stressing out the detox organs, but it's also depleting the minerals in the body. So it's almost like a double whammy.
And you mentioned hydration, so let's take a minute to talk about water consumption and how much sort of the average person should be drinking per day, or what your formula is for determining, based on weight or mass or whatever the variables are, how much water people should be aiming to drink.
So I usually recommend half your body weight in fluid ounces of water a day. And Adding electrolytes to the water, because if we are just drinking plain water, a lot of times people are like, I'm just peeing all day long. And that's a sign that your body's not actually absorbing the water and getting it to where it needs to go. So this is why electrolytes have become so trendy. But again, a lot of electrolyte powders are full of sugar and full of chemicals and full of additives. So I usually recommend just using a Celtic sea salt and some lemon, and that's going to be a natural electrolyte to help restore things in the body. And also coconut water is great. That's going to be naturally based in electrolytes as well.
Is there a particular type of coconut water that you like to recommend?
I like Harmless Harvest. We also use in the office for like quick, easy electrolytes. We use the company's Cure. They do have a little bit of natural flavors in some of them, so we recommend the Lemonade brand. And then we do recommend Perfect Aminos, which is electrolytes and amino acids. So those are kind of my two favorites. If someone's exercising a lot and doing a lot of strength training, I usually recommend the Perfect Aminos. And if it's kind of just for day-to-day use, or if like you're out in the sun, I usually recommend the Cure.
So for listeners who experience daily headaches or migraines, what is the first nutritional related change that you recommend that they try? And I'll preface that by saying, that I have several times now done this standard process 21-day detox. And the idea of that is that you're removing all potential inflammatory foods and for a period of time, 21 days. And then the idea is that you add them back in to see how your body responds to them. But if somebody comes to you with chronic headaches and says, I've been dealing with this for years, what would be your first step? Would it be to recommend a program like that, or would it be to start with one thing like gluten, for example, and give it a period of time to see how their body reacts?
In practice, honestly, if I could start everyone on a 21-day purification, I would. I think it's an amazing program, and it's really good for even just clearing out the liver and kidneys. So I always would say if someone's ready to do that and open to doing that, I think that's like the best starting point. And it's also a good way to go through those foods one at a time. And it's also a really good way to kind of like clear the liver and kidneys. And also it teaches us like we need to be eating a lot of vegetables. We need our fiber. We need our nutrients from these foods. So that's kind of like I would say my golden first choice. Sometimes people aren't ready to jump into a full 21-day cleanse. And I mean, it takes a lot of work. It's a lot of meal prepping. It's a lot of staying on track. It's a lot of self-discipline. So I have seen great results with it. But again, sometimes people are like, I can't commit to this off the bat. So I usually recommend, if it was my next choice, would be starting usually with gluten. That's because gluten nowadays has become extremely inflammatory. We've loaded it with glyphosate. And so that's where we can start to see we're bringing a lot of inflammation down fast. And a lot of times people are eating it 3 to 4 times a day and not even realizing. And nowadays it's a little bit easier. There are swaps we can make. So it's usually a good first start. And then the second thing would probably be sugars. So watching the sugars that are sneaking into our salad dressings, that are sneaking into our ketchup, sneaking into our coffee every single morning, because sometimes people are starting the day off with 50 grams of sugar, and that's a huge blood sugar spike and plummet, but it's also a huge inflammatory response in the body. So those will kind of be my first 2 foods that I start with, but I would say golden rule is like that 21-day purification. It kind of just targets everything, and it's really good to clear out the body and kind of give it a big reset, which we all can use.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that. That has been my experience, and I'll describe elsewhere in this episode, but how it just kind of makes, the word that I always come to is it makes my body feel a lot quieter, and I really like that feeling. I will say a couple of recommendations for listeners if they do want to pursue either the standard process 21-day purification or any program is, for me, caffeine was really hard. I tried to wean myself off of it prior to the beginning of the program, but even so, I had a lot of caffeine withdrawals the first week, and especially the first 2 to 3 days were really intense. And so if you're going to try something like this and you are dependent on caffeine like I was, I would say give yourself a good, several weeks or more to try to ramp down the caffeine and wean yourself off of it, so it's not so intense when you completely eliminate it for a period of time. And the other thing that really was helpful for me was having a group of people who I was doing this with, and we were all texting each other and cheering each other on and sharing recipes and sharing products that were on plan that you could purchase at the store. Having a little community definitely helped me not only stay accountable, but just stay excited about what I was doing and get through some of the harder times when your brain is like asking itself, like, what the heck am I doing? And can I get through this? Sometimes you just need a little encouragement to get over the humps that are more difficult. But all 3 times that I've done it, it's been a very rewarding experience, and I'm definitely looking forward to doing it again.
I remember when the first time you did it, I was like, is he going to get through it? And now you're on number 3.
Do you have any success stories from clients that you've worked with who've come in with headaches and have seen significant improvement through nutrition, dietary changes?
So it's so funny. I don't even know if I've ever told you this. My story actually starts how I got into this world as I was getting chronic migraines. And so what was happening is I was going to doctor after doctor. I was in college at the time, and no one was giving me an answer. And I ended up finding a practice that does what I do now. And the biggest thing that I noticed was my diet obviously changed. I was in college. I wasn't cooking my own food. I wasn't living at home. But I also I had a ton of stress. So stress is also a huge, huge contributor to everything in the body: inflammation, migraines, headaches. And I noticed I wasn't eating enough. I was eating like 1 or 2 meals a day because I was in class all day. So really learning how to balance my blood sugar was huge. But also I ended up taking some support for my liver and some adrenal gland support. And I cut back a lot of like the inflammatory foods I was eating. Like I think I was having a sandwich for lunch every day. And I was eating a lot of desserts because it was available at the dining hall. So that was a big like first catapult. Is I was like, I haven't had a migraine in 10 years now, since I started working in this world. And the same thing, I have had a couple clients who have come in, and we're not doing a full 21-day cleanse, but really focusing on getting their blood sugar balanced. So making sure they're eating enough throughout the day, making sure those inflammatory foods are staying lower, and making sure that their adrenal glands and that their liver have some support to get them through. But I have a client right now, we've gotten her off of, she was on 4 medications for headaches and migraines, and now she's on none. So she's just she has like an emergency one if she needs it. But other than that, she's been off of her dailies for about 6 months now. And we did a lot of work on just hormones, balancing adrenal glands, balancing that blood sugar, and making sure everything stays nice and steady throughout the day.
You made a great point about when you were talking about being in college and just having lots of different things available to you. And I find for me, maybe not even specifically related to headaches, but just health and nutrition in general, is limiting the things around me that aren't contributing to good health.
Yep.
So reducing the sugar, reducing the gluten, just not having them in the house, because if they're not here, then I can't choose them. And that's a huge thing for me. When it's here, especially if it's like something sweet, if it's here, I'm probably going to eat it. So I just need to eliminate it altogether.
Yeah, that's what most people say. They're like, if it's not in the house, I don't need it. I don't like search for it. But again, it's that if it's there and your blood sugar drops a little bit and you're like, oh, I see a sweet, your body's naturally going to reach for it because it knows it's going to give it that instant pull up. But again, then we get that crash down. So I think it's having, again, foods on hand and making sure you're prepared so you have enough of the good things. So when you're reaching for something, it's going to be something that nourishes you rather than inflames you.
So for any listeners who are interested in what we're talking about, I mean, there's so much information out there, but I would recommend that you check out Nicole's website for her company, which is naturalnutritionwellness.com. I'll include a link to that in the episode notes, but Nicole, this has been so great and so enlightening. And every time we connect or you share notes on my food journal, I learn so much. So I'm grateful to you. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, Adam. Have a good rest of your day.
So what do you think? Does hearing what Nicole has to say about nutrition and headaches inspire you to try the 21-day standard process purification program or any other kind of cleanse to remove inflammatory foods from your diet? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and it would be really swell if you left them in the form of a review of the show. And once again, this would be a perfect time to text this episode to someone you know who suffers from chronic headaches or migraines just like we do. In the next episode, we'll explore the connection between sleep and headaches, and how the most common treatment for sleep apnea can be a great tool for reducing chronic headaches and migraine. Please subscribe wherever you're listening to be alerted when that episode comes out. My name is Adam Flaherty, and I want to thank you for joining me on this headache journey.